Okay, now we are in the AWS account logged in. One of the best practices of logging into AWS is instead of using the root account, we can utilize or create an administrator account and use that. So let's go to IAM users, like type in IAM and go to users on the search menu and click on create user, call it administrator. And you can say provide user access to the AWS management console. So select this particular checkbox over here and give it an custom password. Click on next, and over here select attach policies directly, and you would select on administrator access. Click on next. That's it, and you create a user. So next time when you log in, you can basically utilize this particular URL, and then administrator is your username and whatever password you entered, right? So that's what we'll be using. So if I go to my screen over here, go to this user, you would type in administrator. And if you're like ending your session and logging in, make sure you remember your account number. So that's one thing which you'll have to enter, and then enter the password which you have given. And for the first time, it asks us to give the password so that you can come here and change the password and give it a new password. Confirm password change, continue to sign in. That's it. So now you logged in as an administrator instead of, so this is a best practice instead of using a root user. This is an optional step, but I highly recommend to do this particular step. Only thing is for the root user, you don't have access to, like here you see access denied. So you basically do not have access to billing and, few other details. But this is, as a best practice, more safer to log in as an administrator access, or if you're giving access to someone else to do the labs. So once you did this, so the next step what we are going to do is we are going to get onto your hands-on labs. So for that, we'll go to Amazon Bedrock again, type in Amazon Bedrock or just Bedrock. That will take you to this particular screen over here. Now that we are in the Amazon Bedrock playground, you will click on playground on the left. That's what gets you to this particular screen. And you can even download the lab guide, which is available for download in the lab section. So you can follow along this lab or do it along with me. What we'll do now is we'll actually select a model, give it a simple prompt and see what happens. So let's select Amazon. Let's select Amazon Nova Pro. Click on apply. And let's copy paste our first prompt. And what we are doing here is our Q3 results were exceptionally strong across all regions, and asking the model to give us some numbers. And if you look at it, what happened is the model made up certain number. We never gave it any data. So model invents specific numbers, fabricates the region names and rankings, and it also sounds very confident and authoritative, right? So it's completely hallucinating. So now what we'll do is we'll utilize our 4-layer prompt approach, which we learned. So give it a persona. We'll say that it's for executive audience. We will give it some rules or guardrails. We'll even provide it certain data and then ask it to summarize. Let's see what happens with that. So if you look at it, this is the new prompt which we are using. We're telling that you are a senior business analyst. We are giving it a role. We are telling that the audience is executive audience. And we are also giving it some rules. And also, so this is basically our 4-layer prompt which we learned. And finally, we are saying summarize the Q3 and quarter 3 and identify single biggest risk for Q4. So now let's go ahead and run it. Bingo, and let's see the output. So it's more structured. So basically, it gave us the key performance summary. It also, as we asked it to give us the biggest risk, it also gave us the risk that the decline is in a new customer acquisition may impact future. So that's the power of giving it a same model, completely different result, right? And the only thing that changed is the structure of our prompt. right? So that's what prompt engineering is in a nutshell. Now let's go ahead and see a few other things. Like let's go ahead and changes the temperature. So temperature is one thing which we learn. A lower temperature value, then the model is less creative, right? And then it's more deterministic, right? In LLM language, if it you give a higher number than 0.5, it's more creative. So let's go ahead and give it that particular temperature, and then go ahead and run this particular prompt again. So let me paste it. And yep. And then, yep, this is the output we get. Now let's go ahead and change the temperature to say 0.9 and then run it again. So you see the difference, like here with 0.9, the wording varied, and for analysis, basically use 0. For brainstorming, I would recommend go higher. So that's the way you use temperature, like depending on the use case which we looked at during our theoretical session. So for deterministic output, you will be using lower temperature, versus if you want it to be more creative, you'll be using the higher number. Now let's go ahead and compare some models. Let's have some fun with that, right? So here, the same prompt, what we'll do is we can check with two models, right? So here we'll use Nova Pro, and maybe let's select Anthropic Haiku 5. So let's compare these two models. We'll give the same prompt, but we'll see the output as to what we want. Let's see what the model gives us. So for this, we'll again use the same prompt. Let's go ahead and use the same prompt and see what happens for each one of them. Click on run. Yep. So you looked at it. Both are powerful models, but if you look at Claude Haiku 4.5, it gave you a more structured response as compared to Nova Pro. And also it identified a key risk. The quality would be more higher. If you look at Claude Haiku as provided, Claude also took a little bit more time, like maybe 2.5 to 3 seconds as compared to a second for Amazon Nova, right? From a cost standpoint, also Haiku is expensive as compared to uh, Nova Pro. We can say it's somewhere around $2 for million tokens versus 80 cents for million tokens with Amazon Nova Pro for this particular task. And model selection is ultimately the cost lever. If you look at it, you would use, maybe you'll go to Haiku or a Claude Sonnet if you have a high stakes use case, versus your cost sensitive, it's a high volume use case, right? You might want to go with a Amazon Nova Pro. So that's it. Congratulations, you completed your first lab. You wrote your first production quality prompt, failure to fix transformation, where we just gave a normal prompt and then we looked at temperature as to how it was giving more deterministic output when you had a lower temperature versus higher temperatures. We looked at how we could compare and contrast model. So next, we'll start with the core techniques episodes. So that's like going into different prompting techniques, like with zero shot, few shot, roles. How do you get structured outputs?